Yo guys, how are you doing? Thanks for tuning in. My name's Eternize and today we're gonna talk reverb. Reverb in hardstyle is one of the things that really sets it apart from most other music genres in that we use a lot of it. And throughout the years it has been a trend that reverb has been increasing and increasing in volume. I mean, just look at the Art of Creation sub-label. All of their tracks are basically 50% reverb at this point. All jokes aside, reverb is an increasingly important part of the genre, and in this video I will show you how to implement the biggest and the baddest reverbs in your own tracks. Before we get into the video, real quick, check out my preset packs. The lead in this video is made purely from the presets from my packs. Some of the packs are even free too, so check it out, link in the description. Alright, let's go. First things first, we want to pick our reverb of choice. And this is the part where I can't tell you which is the best sounding reverb plugin, cause it depends. What I can tell you though is that I always end up choosing between the same two reverbs, and that is FabFilter's Pro R and the good old Valhalla Room. Those two currently have the most potential for hardstyle leads in my opinion. So in this example I ended up using FabFilter's Pro R, and what I particularly like about this plugin is this knob right here. They refer to it as the character knob, and what it does is that it creates turbulence in the reverberation. This is an important factor when it comes to mixing, but it also just tends to sound more fitting in the hardstyle genre. For distance you want to take it all the way up, and for the reverb length I usually use between 5 and 6 seconds. The stereo width can also vary from track to track, but I usually hit between 70 and 120%. For the EQ, I usually just leave it flat as it is because it sounds great to me, but you can do some experimenting here. Also, we're going to use a dedicated EQ in the next steps anyways. Oh, and one overlooked setting here is the pre-delay because it's located in the bottom of the plugin. You typically want to use between 30 to 150 milliseconds of pre-delay, and it's always hard to guide with this setting, so you just have to listen to the reverb while the lead is playing for the most natural settings. Alright, let's take a listen to the reverb with the settings we have for now. Okay, so long, beautiful and lush reverb here, but obviously way too cluttering and masking for the lead itself. So next what we want to do is to take an EQ and start to shape the sound profile of the reverb so that it complements the lead instead of masking over it. So here we reduced the overpowering mids and increased the highs by a lot, and actually this type of EQ curve is very common when it comes to EQing lead reverbs. Also note that the low cut is sitting as high as 300 Hz, which is really high to be honest, but for this lead and for most leads in general today, we have a bass that takes care of all the low-end business, so generally you can be pretty generous with the low cutting. Alright, so now that we have the sound of the reverb that we want, we're gonna look into managing the level when the lead is playing. So what I like to do now is pull up a compressor, not to use it for sidechaining, but to actually compress the reverb itself. And why would you do this? You would do it to manage the peaks of the reverb and to make sure that the reverb has a pretty consistent audio level at all times. Now there are multiple options. You could use a regular compressor, you could use a multiband compressor, and you could also go for saturation because that is also a form of compression. And all three are viable options, and I will encourage you to try them all out, but for the most part I just stick with a regular compressor to achieve a clean management of the audio levels. So for settings, I would go really slow on the attack and release. Again, we're not trying to shape the sound here, we only want the compressor to work for a more consistent delivery of audio levels. Let's take a listen to the before and after. Now that we have a clean and consistent reverb, it's time to sidechain it to the lead. Sidechaining the reverb to the lead means that every time the lead is playing, the reverb will reduce in volume, this way making space for the lead to be loud and clear, and then when the lead is not playing, the reverb immediately jumps back to its original volume. If this is done correctly, as a listener, you cannot actually hear the ducking going on. This technique has huge implications when it comes to mixing and overall is just a great skill to master. Okay, now let's pull up our compressor of choice. So, a few key settings here to adjust when sidechaining. The threshold determines how much the reverb will duck. Attack determines how long it will take to fully duck the reverb. And release how long it will take for the ducking to go back to normal. So if you have a really quick attack and release settings, it will quickly duck and quickly get back to normal again. It is usually the faster settings that work best for sidechaining. Also, I always use the opto compressor style when I use sidechaining because it is just a split second faster than the other options, so I'll take that as well. Finally, you would want to choose the source of the sidechaining, i.e. what is going to trigger the compression. And this is where most people, of course, would go and choose the lead bus or an existing component of the lead, such as the top lead. But this is where I tell you that I have a better and cleaner option. Try this instead. Open up a new layer of the synth that you're using for your lead. Now we can call this the ghost lead or the reverb trigger or whatever. And this is where the magic happens. I want you to choose a square waveform and activate retriggering. Then go to the envelope settings and make sure that the attack and release is all the way down with the sustain all the way up. Last thing to do is to silence the output and fill in the MIDI information where you want the ducking to happen. Now go to your sidechain compressor and make this layer the source of the sidechaining. And here's what this does. If you use the lead buzz as the source of your sidechain trigger, the incoming audio is usually changing, right? You have different tones throughout the melody and they will inevitably have different velocities. This will in turn translate into your sidechain compressor ducking your reverb with different volumes, right? Because the compressor is reacting to incoming signal. So different volume in equals different volume out. And while this can sometimes be very slight changes and almost inaudible, it can also be very dramatic. Now, if you instead use the square wave as the trigger, you'll find that no matter what, it will always have the same velocity across all notes. That means that the incoming signal to the compressor is always the same, and so the level of the ducking will always be the same as well. And this will in turn give you a more consistent sound throughout the lead. Now you could argue that you could work around that with the range setting in the Pro C2, and you could, but not all compressors have that option. And also here's another reason why this method is superior to anything else. If you remember, we turned the envelope settings all the way to 0 on the attack and release settings, so this means that the ducking will start to happen on the dot with 0 delay. The reason why this is desirable over the option where it will duck to the lead itself is that the setting you use on your lead sounds often has a slight delay on the attack, like in this case. And if you remember, the ducking in the compressor doesn't fully duck the reverb instantly, it has a slight curve to it. That means that when you sidechain to the lead itself, the reverb is still on for a short period before it is fully ducked. But now if you use the square wave that has 0 delay, the reverb has a chance to fully duck before the actual lead starts to play, 205 milliseconds later in this case, and this will leave you with a cleaner result. Let's take a listen to the two options. So now that I've told you the dirtiest secrets of the industry, I do of course expect a like and subscribe in return. No, but seriously, even though the results or the potential gains of these methods seems very negligible, a little goes a long way towards maximizing your lead's potential. Also, another way that you can help me help you is to check out my preset packs. With those you'll be able to make the exact lead that you heard in this video. You could also see it as a friendly tip so that I can keep making these videos for you guys. Link will be in the description. Alright, go make those massive leads now. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one.